Hello and welcome. My name is Teo, and today we're going to be looking at a replay review of Mr. Deskup. Let's jump into it. Let's put on the player view. Let's put on that line of sight with L. Personally, I really like having the line of sight on because without it, you have no idea what to actually see. So grabbing that first max. Before this even really gets started, I want to point out that this is a rough spot to play. And it's pretty common for people to try to push through the middle here because this spot does not get like a ton of mexes or anything. And so they're inherently a little bit weaker. Let's speed up a little bit. Alright, so you're putting your factory up here. Grabbing a solar first, then factory, okay. So far so good. Yeah, I mean I was gonna maybe criticize this century, but like it's not bad actually. This solar could maybe have been put back further. Like if you had plans to make a second solar, try to do it like more in this zone because it's going to be harder for scouts and things to pick it off. Um, I mean, maybe not directly next to this, maybe like really close to the LT, and then it just becomes much harder for them to actually deal damage without the LT killing them, type of thing. But yeah, you got your factory, getting a couple of scouts. You got all sorts of stuff queued up. Glad to see it. Nice early radar. That's a great radar spot as well. Solar positions. Yeah, this is something that I'm working on at the moment too. Um, and it's really hard to do like in the moment. So like in my head, I'm trying to like plan out certain things so it becomes more a habit. Um, but eventually, positioning is going to matter. Where like you start placing your very early buildings, and I guess my take on this, as it currently stands, is ideally it's all kind of based around where's the build power, where are the construction turrets, and obviously you want your construction turrets to be able to help the lab, when you have them. Um, but then also you want to have space so that they can also help out with like eco buildings and stuff later on. Like my whole thing is trying to put like the very first fusion or whatever it is, pretty close to the lab, but not like close enough where if I lose it, it's gonna just destroy, absolutely everything. So to me, the concerts should basically be around here, and if you start building solar here, it's gonna be harder to put them in that zone because otherwise you're gonna have to put all your concerts like, up here somewhere, and then it's like because of the hill, because of the side of the map, like you don't really have a lot of space to like add a bunch of other stuff on, um, you know, with the consorts being used. So I we'll see how you do it later, and I'll maybe talk a bit more about it at that time. Let's see, energy got a little bit low for a minute, but it looks like it wasn't like terribly low. Like it made sense to actually crank this guy out still. So yeah, second solar, again, kind of in that spot. The scouts going around, just kind of looking around. Glad to see them like just move around. Like they don't necessarily have to run into the enemy base, but just like having that vision, having that information of like where is your opponent's commander, very important. Is there other scouts coming along? Also very important. So I'm just glad to see all that. Your first con's coming out to grab your mexes, which I like to see as well. I personally like that. Um, yeah. All right, some more solars coming on. Um, do notes that even at 7.5 average wind speed, it is better to get wins technically, at least in terms of the metal cost. And since you don't have a ton of mexes, this is a situation where you might want to consider going into wins, either before the third solar or before the fifth solar or even sooner than that. Um, Now, since the winds is quite low, it's going to take a lot of wind to actually like build up enough, but like it is better. It even tells you if you hover over here that for Armada, if the average wind speed is below 5, then wind is going to be more efficient in terms of metal. Now, obviously, a couple solar, like your first solars, are nice because it gives you stability. But yeah, a couple switching into winds after that is actually quite nice, especially since you don't have a ton of metal to work with. Um, so this might hinder you a bit in terms of metal. Like you could have more units if you did wind instead. At the very least, I would say, um, you know, this is actually a good situation to go into advanced solar. Now, technically, advanced solar, in terms of metal cost, is actually like, it's like right when the wind is at 7.5 that it's like equal. So in that, in that case, I would say advanced solar is better because of the stability. Um, but yeah, just going wind here is actually fine. It's just going to take a lot of build power and time to actually build it. So that's another reason to get the solar or the advanced solar instead. Um, but yeah, basic solars, like ideally you want to get rid of them ASAP. It's kind of fine to like start with them, but just try to get rid of them. So it looks like he found a Janus. You can kill it. Nice. It gets a shot off, unfortunately. So you lose those units. Yeah. So yeah, your energy's still quite low. Cranking out a couple of whistlers. You got your first arty. You got those mexes. You got these mexes now too. Okay, so here, what's going on? Okay, so your energy is dropping now because of this geo. So geos cost a ton of energy. They're kind of like even more energy. They're like way more energy than advanced solar. Almost 3 times as much actually. It's like 2.5 times or whatever. Um, so yeah, with this is just too early. You don't have the energy to build this efficiently, essentially. So what that means is now your energy bar is completely drained, and it will be until this is finished. And that means you can't degun, you can't, your light laser towers can't shoot. And if it's low enough, and in this case it might be, your metal extractors are going to come offline because they cannot, give that three energy. Yeah, so they're periodically going offline because of that. So you're actually losing metal because of the geo. Uh, and while normally this light laser tower makes sense, here you just don't have the energy. So like it's not going to fire until the geo's done. So you might not even want to get it quite. If you run into this, you don't want to really get it. The other thing is, usually I talk about this in terms of metal, but in this case it's in terms of energy. Um, yeah, since your energy is so low, it might even make sense to pause your factory to put more of the energy into this extract or into this geo. Um, I would argue you might want something a little bit closer to like plus 300, 400 energy before you even get the geo. But of course, it kind of depends on what else you're building and how you're using your energy. Um, but yeah, this is just too early. I mean, actually, I would say at least like, let's say like 250 energy income. Because yeah, you're just losing all of it right now. And what that means is this geo is coming out slower. This unit's not going to come out very quickly either. And like I said before, yeah, this stuff, your commander can't degun, and things like light laser towers don't attack, and mexes go offline. So it's kind of a big deal. I would actually also argue before getting the geo, get an advanced solar. It's kind of you have to think about the same thing where like you need to have enough energy to support building it because it does cost a bit of extra energy. It's 5,000 energy, but that's a lot less than 13,000 energy for the geo. Yeah, so this is a big, it's going to hiccup or get it's yeah, hiccuping your production or whatever very significantly at this point. um, yeah, your opponent's playing it rather safe, just kind of chilling. Obviously, sometimes they don't notice that you're out of energy and see that energy bar or energy lightning bolts. Um, but yeah, it looks like the geo is finally about to get done. I think this is on, yeah, so this is on 2 times speed as well, so it might have felt like it got done pretty fast, but it is 2 times speed. I'm going to slow down a little bit. 1.1 speed. Yeah, this is another thing to be careful of you know, if you leave your units out in the front like this, it's nice to have like, you know, your Whistler taking some shots off here and there, but at the same time, fairly easy for them to just kind of roll in and pick at it once in a while and just kill one here and there, like this. And he's gonna pull back. Yep. And then he can repair. Yeah, so it's easy to lose stuff like that for sure. Let's see what else is going on. You're building. Okay, so yeah, because of the geo, your metal also like uh, rose a bit there. So now you're adding on your construction turrets. Got a nice little artillery battle here. But yeah, your opponent at this time just has a lot more because of the geo. The other thing that I'm noticing is, you know, while this radar was good, I would definitely argue to get one somewhere in here. Um, like basically, you know, you want one every so often. Like say this wasn't where the front is, you know, and you have your radar goes out all the way out there. I would put my next one around here, but because the front is like basically along this line right now, or you know, somewhere around here, you know, you just basically want the radar to extend as far as possible. So just having one somewhere, you know, in the vicinity to extend it, like I think it would extend it around there, would just give you some more intel, help you figure out if he's reinforcing his lines or not, because that's actually a big deal. Um, if you see your opponent reinforcing, that means you need to also reinforce or build statics or whatever to defend your position, if assuming you want to keep it, right? But if you don't see units coming in, then you know that he's teching or ecoing or whatever. So, you know, it just clues you into what you might need to do in the future. So very, very important. Um, but yeah, just kind of playing it out. Let's see, nothing crazy going on yet. Let's speed it up again. I did take some notes. Actually, I took a lot of notes. So I'm going to be checking on that once in a while. Alright, so you're building a couple of Dragon Claws. So I don't think this is necessarily bad here. It does, you know, these Dragon Claws take a ton of metal. Actually, it's only 340. For some reason, I thought it was more. I don't know what I'm thinking of, but yeah, yeah, that's not too bad, I suppose. Definitely better than I would definitely recommend the Dragon's Claw over the HLT, because the cost and you know they do significantly more damage and can take quite a bit more damage. 620, actually, well, okay. So it's 2,600 hit points on the Overwatch, and 1330 for the Dragon's Claw. So the Dragon's Claw has less hit points, but it does get a bonus when it's burrowed. Um, and then, you know, opponents don't attack it necessarily until it's popped up. But yeah, you're doing some nice repair. Got a small crew roaming around. Looks good. See, still cranking out some units. Okay, so you're gifted a T2. He just made his way over here. Looks like you got it a little while ago. So at this moment, you know, a lot of the times, really good players will, you know, as soon as they start upgrading the mexes, they'll stop production here if their metal's low, so that they can get the mexes quicker. And this is going to depend on, you know, your build power and where everything's spaced out and stuff. Like, you know, you have 2 turrets here and a lab here, which is not by where this is upgrading, so you can't really just tell these turrets to go help out build this or anything. So in this case, it might make sense to maybe have the lab on, just because I don't know if you have enough build power to do it super quickly with what you have here. But the idea is to spend as much of your metal income on upgrading these so that you get even more metal income faster. Now, on a lot, excuse me, on a lot of maps, you know, this would be in this area. So then you could have the turrets just assist this. At that point, it's like you could potentially even eat the lab to get, to have more metal available to pump into these extractors to just get it all quicker, type of thing. But yeah, given your current situation, I would consider pausing this, but of course that depends on how safe you feel here. Given the situation, see, Teal has quite a few tanks here. Tanks and Janus are really what you mainly need to worry about. If it was a bunch of Whistlers and Artie, you have a sneaky Pete, so it wouldn't be too bad. But given all the medium tanks and Janus, and given that you don't have a ton here to respond to that, I would actually argue to maybe consider, pumping out more units really quick and then building this, and just kind of like waiting for like a minute to build this, and then when you do, shut this off or something like that. And that way you have the units, and you don't want to send those units you just got in. You want to just like kind of chill and wait for him to come to you and make a mistake. They're not for aggression, they're for keeping you alive while you grab these mexes, type of thing. Um, yeah, it looks like, I mean, he's being rather careful too. You can kind of gauge how safe you feel too by how aggressive your opponent is. Right now, he is being rather careful. So, um, with what you have, it might be totally fine to just pause this for a minute, because basically, well, I mean, I assume that you have all these on low priority. That's, I think, the defaults, and constructors and stuff are on high priority. So I guess the metal would be going here anyways. So I guess it's really not that big a deal now that I think about it. It'd be more like if you needed to eat the lab. Looks like little extra pips of metal do go into the lab, so I guess that would be the reason to pause it. But yeah, your first extractor is done. Working on your second. But yeah, I mean, I guess like the whole thing is like even in between building these, like your metal goes up just a little bit. And instead of it going up, it's being spent on the lab, so it could have been spent on getting this a little tiny bit sooner. Small things, small adjustments, but like, ultimately getting that upgrade sooner would, I think, help a lot. Um, nice. Little things like that, always nice. I think I missed it, but there was a time, let's see, where is it? Yeah, I believe I missed it, but there was a time when he sent some tanks in and they all got degunned. Just a reminder, I think you know this already probably, but ideally you, because I think they got degunned because they're clustered up, like, around here or something. I forget exactly where it was, but they were all clustered up and tried to turn around or something. They were just not moving efficiently, and so I just want to point out, in case you don't know, or in case anybody else that watches this doesn't know, you do not want your tanks to go in and then right back out. You do not want this. If you had bots, that would be fine. They turn around pretty quickly, but vehicles do not. So the way you want to poke and attack with vehicles is basically to like while they're in a line like this, you send them up this way and like around, like make big turns and back down and around. Basically, you're going in this circle, or you go into like, say you go up here and then back down here and then back up this way. Like you can, the whole thing, the whole idea is basically to make wider turns instead of, quick turns. You don't want like, you know, sharp turns. You want to go wide so that they keep their momentum as they move, and then they can avoid more shots, and it's easier to avoid D-guns and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, just be careful of the enemy D-guns, because if you get that, like all these tanks outrange the commander. Like the Janus does barely, so it has to get pretty close to actually fire. But if the enemy commander, is running away and you're chasing it, and then all of a sudden it reverses and goes towards your units. If you're chasing him direct, say the commander's here, if you're chasing him directly and going in that way, that motion, um, and the enemy commander's going this way, and then he changes direction and faces this way. Now all of a sudden your tanks are really close to his, and because of the direction that they're going, they can't just quickly like go 90 degrees and or even like 180 degrees or whatever it is. They can't really do that quickly. So again, if even if you're chasing a commander, you want your tanks to maybe go down this way, because say the range is like this. Um, you want to be on the outskirts of the range of the D gun at all times if possible. Um, note that D gun has a slightly less range than the laser. Let's see, it's 250 for D gun and 300 for the laser. So just to be aware of that. And actually, let's look at Janus 2. So Janus is 380. So it's just slightly more than the laser actually, just by a little bit, and then a little bit more than the D gun for sure. Anyways, let's move it along. Um, so yeah, the other thing was okay. Wait, when was that? I'm just looking at my notes really quick. Yeah, so I'm also missed this apparently, but so you were upgrading these mexes, and this Dragon's Claw was being rebuilt, and you were building units, and it was just like a lot to happen at once. So the more like the more things you can stop building while you're grabbing, especially something really important like a upgrading your mexes, the better. Um, because the more you spend over so many different things, the less is being spent on the actual extractor or on the thing that you might want the most. So I think it's a good idea while you play bar to just kind of try to gauge, try to guess what do you actually need right now, and spending and like focusing your build power all on that one thing. Um, and to that's just ideal. And of course it's tricky because it's like, well, I want to upgrade these mexes, but then I got to worry about my units. I can't really micro the mexes, and then I might also want the static D, and you just like start queuing up all this stuff, and it's good to queue, of course. It's just when it comes to bigger projects, you don't want a lot going on at the same time. Um, and this T2 lab dips into that as well. I definitely want to talk about that because this is definitely too early. Um, so what a lot of good players will end up doing, like say they aren't gifted a T2 and they have to build one themselves, right? Um, they'll even build the lab, build the constructor, and then eat the lab, and then use the metal that was in the lab to upgrade the mexes ASAP. And then if they need units, they'll actually rebuild the T1 lab and produce units out of there. At least that's what I do, because it gets kind of scary. If you don't have a lab at all and your opponent keeps cranking out units and then decides to push. So just getting an understanding of where your opponent is at and what he might, or I guess what he could do with what he has or what you see that he has. And of course, also if you don't have the radar, I mean, this gives you a little bit of information. If it was out here again, like you'd get a lot more information. Um, but yeah, the less radar coverage you have, the more worried about it you should be as well. Um, but yeah, this T2 lab is too early uh, because yeah, you are also grabbing your advanced mexes and you're also producing out of this lab. And I think you start eating this actually in a minute. Uh, yeah, just definitely start eating that. So that's good that you're eating that for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, there's enough here from teal that it's. Why does it keep doing that? There's enough here from teal that's it's like you should worry about a little bit, but you have enough here to keep him at bay for bits. So it kind of comes down to how aggressive your opponent's being and he's being kind of moderately aggressive. He's like poking. He's not like just running in there with like a giant force or anything. He's you guys are doing some skirmishing essentially. So this is all fine. You don't have to feel too worried, but you know um, just a little worried. But yeah, anyways, the T2 lab. Um, yeah, so first of all, for your T2 lab, I don't believe your energy is quite high enough to support building units out of here, especially since as you upgrade these mexes, like a regular mex, let's see, a regular mex takes 3 energy per second to produce 2 metal. An upgraded mex takes 20 energy to produce, in this case, 12. Obviously every map is different. Um, so 12 energy is significantly more, or I'm sorry, 20 energy is significantly more. So if you upgrade like a bunch of mexes, it's like 20 here, 20 there, 20 there. All of a sudden you're paying an extra 100 energy. And you don't quite have. I mean, you might have enough if you aren't producing units at all. But given that you are producing units, well, you're going to eat this lab and not produce units. But you know, it's just a lot of energy. And then once this is done, all these T2 units cost way more energy than T1 units. Like way more. Like the Whistler 2100. If we think about something that's similar, and even just say like a Mauser, then the Whistler is pretty expensive. Um, well, I mean, I guess a lot of these are around 2000s. Here you have the Mauser, which is a very cheap T2 unit, and that's double. So you have to consider like I'm gonna need double the energy in a minute, essentially. Um, so I would consider adding on. In this case, I would add on advanced solar. On other maps, it might be winds, but usually it's either winds or advanced solar. I mean, I guess tide comes into play on some rare occasions, but generally winds or in this case advanced solar. To get it to be more like say like at least like I don't know plus 650, 700 at the very least. Ideally a little bit closer to like 8 or 900. Um, and that will support all the T2 mechs that you get and help support building a fusion eventually, and all that. So um, something to consider. So essentially trying to get more energy to support cranking out units here, and also, since your metal is low, you're not like swimming in it. You want to spend more of that metal on upgrading your metal so that you can start to swim in it a little bit more. I hope that all makes sense. Let's see, do my notes say anything else about that? Yeah. So essentially, because you already have the T2 builder and he's already getting mexes, I would wait to get this. Um, Now, and if you're feeling uncomfortable here, like say you didn't, like you ate your lab to get these mexes faster, and that's something you can do too, by the way, if you want to, you can um, essentially like when you get your T2 builder to upgrade these, and start upgrading the mexes. If you feel safe on the front, you can eat the lab. You eat the T1 lab so that you can spend all your metal on upgrading your mexes. And then as soon as you feel uncomfortable again, or you feel like, oh, it's possible that my opponent could push me right now. He has more than I have, and I could just die. Then you rebuild the lab. And that way you just start getting these extractors quicker. Um, but yeah, your energy again is so low that as you add these extractors on, um, you might find out that it starts draining, even though you don't, you're not really even doing T2 units yet. Um, Now on this map, of course, you have the geo, so it's a little bit negated. It's a little bit fine. But yeah, that's the whole thing. If you want me to expand on that, or if it doesn't quite make sense or something, definitely let me know, and I'll talk with you about it. But yeah, let's move it along. All right, Artie. Okay, so you just got a jammer. So now you don't see anything at all. So this becomes a big problem too because um, you just don't have the vision to see his units, and he doesn't really have the vision to see yours either because of the jammer. Um, but different units have different line of sight. Like for example, this tank has 325, artillery have 364. It's really not, they're about the same. Um, there's certain units like the Whistler that, well, we don't have your factory anymore to click on to see that, but like the Whistler has, I forget what it is. It's like 600 some, I think, or 600. So it can see a bit further, and then you also have your scouting units like the Rover or Tix or whatever, and those can see even further. So if you're running into trouble because of the jammer, you can use stuff like, um, just with your army, keep like a tick or some kind of scouts or a Whistler or something like that. Would be helpful here. One of the other things that you can do, if you have artillery like this, you can park your units, back here in a more defensive zone, and then have your artillery kind of guess where your opponent is. I'm gonna turn off your view so I can select your units to show you this, but in case you don't know, you can hit A, and you can do left click. Please excuse the weird circle. I don't know why it does this. It like bugs out for me. Um, in fact, it looked like it was fixed earlier, so I don't really understand. Okay, well, it's just completely bugged out. Um, so anyways, you can hit A and left drag to circle certain units, but the thing about doing that is if it doesn't have vision, it's not going to actually do anything. It's just going to actually sit there and do nothing. But what you can do to manually fire is hit A and right click, and that lets you draw a line, just like if you're moving, um, you know, and you can kind of guess where your opponents are and tell them to basically attack ground in that position. Essentially, that's what A plus right click drag does. And if you're lucky, you can even guess where the jammer is and kill it off. Um, and then if you've seen static defenses of theirs before, or static, some buildings before, then you get this like shadowy outline of a building, like this radar or this LLT, and you can manually, like, they won't automatically fire on it because it's not a dots anymore, but you can manually, select your units and just hit A and left click, or left or and right click drag. Let me say it again. I said it kind of weird. So you hit A and then you can just click if it's a single target, or you can hit A and right mouse drag over a target if you're not quite sure where it is, type of thing. Um, but yeah, ideally, if you don't have line of sight, you can just manually fire in there like that. Um, let's see. So yeah, this gets a little bit rough because you both have to get pretty close. I don't know if he has any vision. Let's see. Let's see what he sees actually. Yeah, so he's going through the same thing. He could use a Whistler or a Scout or something like that as well. Yeah. Let's see notes. So let's see, what do you got going back at your base? Your T2 lab is eventually going to get done. It's taken a while because you've been low on energy or low on metal, and you've been doing extra spending on these mexes. So again, if you upgraded these first, it would help out. I'm going to teach you a neat little trick here in case you don't know this as well. But to get some of this stuff done a little bit sooner, so C2 builders are notoriously slow walking. And if you have a mech that's further away like this one, it's good to queue them up and have like, hey, build this mech, this mech, this mech, then this mech, then this mech, which is great. But as this one's getting close to being finished up building, you can order your T2 builder to start on this one, and he'll get walking a little bit sooner so that these two guys will continue finishing this up, and then once they're done finishing it up, they'll continue guarding this guy and meet him down here to help build that. And these guys just move a little bit faster, so like you'd be able to upgrade that a little bit quicker. Yeah, 33 movement speed is very, very slow. But yeah, these T1 constructors, You know, especially because their vehicles are a little bit faster because of that. You know, 54 movement speed is a lot quicker. Whereas at this point they're kind of just like trailing along like la di da, just kind of wait for this guy to get there. It's gonna take a while. It does give you some time to finish this though, so it's kind of okay in a way. I mean, you know, it's just it's not ideal, but like it kind of works out. Looks like you're getting a jammer to deal with that, or I'm sorry, a Juno to deal with the jammer. Let's put back on your view, line of sight. Okay. All right, so you're getting that Juno. Yeah, so now your energy is starting to tick down because you're producing out of here. And again, like these Mausers are very cheap. You know, if you think about like, you know, even a Jaguar is 6,000 you know, 6.4 thousand energy. You know, a Bull is 13,000 energy. You know, and it gets pretty expensive. Um, but yeah, your energy's having a rough time. One of the things that you could do is, I mean, this is something, especially since you have the Geo, but like, I've seen this a lot even with, you know, some of the higher level players. Although basically, you know, grab a bunch of mexes and then eventually get their fusion. And it's like they kind of need the energy before that. And I would argue, you know, if your energy situation is this low, I would argue to get the advanced Geo sooner than later. You know, maybe grab these three mexes, upgrade the Geo, and then upgrade these two mexes. Something like that. Um, and if you're feeling ultra safe, like you could potentially build another builder to do it. Like your metal's not in a terrible spot. You know, it's you know, you got some of these already upgraded, so like you do have some metal coming in. You know, say this guy needs to get to a very far away one. Like say let's say the mex was like all the way the fuck back here or something. You know, he's got to go like way out there. Well, you know, instead of going way out there and way back to build the fusion, you could build a second builder type of thing. Um, but yeah, just to answer your energy needs a little bit sooner. Um, but yeah, this is pretty fast. You know, going from this max, upgrade this, and then go down here. You know, to grab that some more max, I think would be ideal in this situation. Um, but yeah, again, like yeah, if you had some advanced solar built already in anticipation of this factory being done, I think it would have worked out a little bit better as well. Then you could afford to get this stuff first. It's, I guess, what I'm saying. Uh, it's just the energy is starting to get low, and now you can't degun. Now your mexes are starting to go offline, and it becomes a bit more of an issue. And especially since you have this Juno, it does cost energy. It does cost metal as well. So um, while I think it's good that you got the Juno, or I think it's, you know, a reasonable unit to get, you know, just know that the you know, the minus 2.7 metal, you know, even with T2 mexes is, you know, it's not like a lot, but it's not nothing, right? And you know, same with the energy drain. Well, the energy drain's really only it's 160. So to me, this feels a little bit early to have a Juno. Like it's to me better to get it a little bit later. But yeah, again, you're dealing with this jammer and stuff. So like, I can understand you wanting to build it. Just know that, you know, there is a cost to it. Um, and it looks like you did produce a gremlin. I was gonna say, instead of building the Juno, you could build a couple of gremlins and stick them, you know, around the zone and just see stuff. Let's see, what is their line of sight again? That's only 500. I mean, it's not great, but like, you know, it's better than nothing. So let's see. Yeah, well, it's great to have this guy out. It's very easy to lose him if your enemy advances. So this bit of line of sight is actually helping you a ton right now. That's really good. Let's see. So okay, so now you're getting that geo. Okay, so you did do the walking thing with your con to get this geo faster, so that's good. Glad you know about that. Um, yeah, so I think you understood that you needed the energy. It's just, I guess for me, in my perspective, it's sort of like, um, you know, I have enough games and experience to be able to anticipate that. So to me, it's like, you know, get the geo or get the these three mexes. Like usually to me, it's like around like you get three mexes upgraded, and then you want a fusion or advanced geo, and then you can finish upgrading your mexes type of thing. That's usually when I want to get it too. So, um, that makes sense. All right, so barrage in place. Yeah. At this point, you may want to consider starting to like eat some of your T1 stuff around here. Um, it kind of depends on what you're facing up off against, and you're facing off against these shell shockers and stuff. So like, the T1's still useful, but at the same time, it's like as you move into T2, it might be um, more reasonable to get, to like eat your own shell shockers and put that metal into Mausers. Now, obviously, at this time when I'm paused, like your metal is quite high and your energy is quite low as you're finishing up this geo. Um, and again, like the advanced geo is kind of the same thing. It costs a lot of energy. Any of that stuff does. It costs like a ton of energy. So like some advanced solar would have helped you out here build this a little bit better. And then like you could actually I believe I could be wrong, but I believe you could spend more on concerts here to get this up faster. Assuming again because you have the energy for it and your metal is starting to be good and shit like that. Because yeah, it does happen. Energy does get low, but ideally you don't want it to get too crazy low because they do cost. Uh, they do take away from your metal income, so just be careful. All right, so at this point, so you have a radar. That's good. You can kind of see stuff. Looks like green found a little spot that you can't quite see because of that radar. And then of course the jammer is preventing you from seeing stuff. But with the radar here, you can actually see like up to the cliff here. Or I drew that so poorly. Obviously it's like more like that, but like yeah, so you can see like all the way up here. And the jammer that he has probably only covers like around here, right? So any reinforcements, you'd see a little blips of stuff coming in. That's kind of what I was getting at earlier. So that gives you a tell of, what you might or might not need to do. Obviously, green showing up is a completely different factor. You don't necessarily know that he's going to be doing that. Now, given the state of the map, like this gets into more advanced stuff that's I'm a little bit more hesitant to teach you at this point. But one of the things to consider eventually is seeing like what is the state of the game, what is the state of the lane next to me. Blue's got a good position here, and looks like they're doing fairly well against pink and brown here. So that means if one player can hold both these players, that means green is now free to do, like green is a back player just like green is, right? Or just like brown is, right? So he can kind of go wherever he's needed. And since blue has this down here, green is coming up to you. And so that's something like, although it's kind of unexpected, you can kind of see that coming if you see the position of blue here is, in a reasonable spot. Of course, green could help blue. Blue's not like in a, crazy good spot or anything like that, but he's choosing to go up there instead. So, and who knows, maybe green has a couple units down here somewhere as well. Note that these are not radar blips. These are, buildings that have been seen at some point. So this is actually jammed or there's no radar. Looks like there's just no radar. There's this radar. Of course, I can't click on it, so I gotta take off the view to click on it. All right, so you see, okay, so he sees up to there. So there's the jammer. I just needed to know. Sorry. Anyways, so this pushes you back quite a bit. Unfortunately, Mausers cannot fire behind them, so you're taking a lot of extra shots as you move back here, and that is giving your lane a lot of extra metal here. And yeah, it's it's an uncomfortable spot. So this is pretty common on this map. This position, um, we kind of call it the bitch spot because you just get shit on. Because it's rough. It's like you don't get that much metal to work with, and the opposing side has more safer metal to work with, and it's easier for them to push over here. And you might say like, well, I don't know if you're on the kind of person that would say like, oh, that's just like totally imbalanced, like that's not fair at all. Well, the other side's the same thing. So it's kind of fine. It's just like to note that your side is going to be harder. So pink here and red, or yeah, I should say pink here, has more mexes available essentially than this player here. But he's also, this player over here has a support of purple. Or I assume it's purple, maybe it's light blue. But either way, there's two players here, whereas there's only one from you. Brown is helping against blue here so that pink doesn't get run over. So these are things that, as you get more comfortable with the game, you'll have more time to kind of like zoom out and see what's going on, to help you make decisions, I guess. Not that any of your decisions have been that, bad or anything at this point, but just something to note. So here you want to be careful of these Mausers because yeah, that is a little out there for naked Mausers. So let's see, you got your advanced geo done, you're getting some advanced converters. So given that your energy started so low before this geo, you actually just need to not do converters here. I would say maybe a couple of T1 converters or something like that, but these hefty T2 converters, they do provide a lot of nice metal, but at the same time, your energy income is low enough that you can't really afford these. There's not going to be much to convert with your, since you're producing T2. Looks like you stopped production for a minute. I don't know if that's intentional or not. Let's go back to your view. Okay, I don't know if the production just ran out or what. It looks like repeats is off. But either way, like it's gonna help you get some of this stuff a little quicker. You send your Juno out. Okay, so now you're keying stuff up. You put your repeat on. Yeah, so that looks like it was just an accident, which can happen. Which means now you have a ton of extra metal. But it's okay, I suppose. Yeah, so here you actually are using the converter a little bit, like here and there. It really depends on what you're building, and since you're building units again, your converter usage is dipping down here and there. The second one, I don't know if you can really afford the second one. The first one actually seems okay though. But yeah, if you're producing starlights, then you actually like. So here's the thing, with how it works, like it's just like, the way it works is the energy cost is basically split up amongst the build time to give you like how much energy drain a second, right? And that's all dependent on how much build power is put into it as well. But either way, usually going and switching from something like a Mauser that's only 4,000 energy to something like a Starlight that's 13,000 energy is going to cost you way more energy drain. So that, with Starlights, essentially, because they're so metal or so energy heavy, and same with Bulls, they're kind of heavy too. With those two units, you do not need this first converter even, let alone the second. And it's okay to convert a bit of the excess. I would just argue, maybe get some T1 converters instead, so you're not spending metal on it. Yeah, so to me, once you get the T2, I mean, and really throughout the game, but like especially on T2 because everything's so much more expensive, it's all about figuring out, do I need units? Why is it, I don't know why it draws like that. Do I need units, or do I want to upgrade my economy? And ideally you pick one or the other. And then, there's times when it's like, okay, maybe I don't need to produce a ton of units, but I kind of need to produce some units at least, right? It kind of feels that way sometimes. And if you feel that way, like, yeah, you can produce units and upgrade your economy, just know that both are going to be slower for it. Um, but yeah, you have a nice central location of your build power, and this is what I was actually might as well talk about it now. The first thing I was talking about was placement. Now because of these solars here, your con turrets end up being up here, and now they can't really support T2 economy being built, which seems to be around here, or will be around here, or whatever, or maybe you put it back here somewhere, right? But either way, to me, it's important to like at least the first one, but I would say even the first like 2 or 3 fusions or aphis or whatever, you kind of want near your initial build power, because otherwise you're going to have to spend the time to build a whole nother set of build power. And essentially, these first turrets are just always going to help the lab, and the second set of turrets is always going to help the economy, right? But if you're trying to do one or the other, you could turn off all these turrets and the lab, but then it's just like, well, they're just sitting there not doing anything. So it's less efficient to do it that way than to have the same set of turrets doing one or the other. I hope that makes sense. We can also go over that in detail if you'd like. I mean, we can go over any of this in detail. Um, ask me all the questions. And if you're just watching this on YouTube and you're not even Deskup, then that's cool too. You can ask questions as well. Leave some comments. I do look at them periodically. So you got a nice little push here, taking out some stuff. Bulls are nice and hefty, but they are taking some pot shots from these Mortys. What are they called? Sheldons. That's it. I'd like these to get repaired, but I get it. Sometimes there's a lot going on, and you just feel like you don't have the time to. But like to me, that's also very important. It's not just important to repair your T1 stuff. Arguably, it's even more important with T2 because it is so much more metal if they do die on the enemy territory. This is a nice little position you're holding here. Okay, so you are working on that fusion. So this is a good spot. Yeah, I'd put up a radar. I'd consider a jammer as well, or at the very least maybe a mobile jammer. This is actually something I'm seeing is a bit omitted from your army, is the mobile radar and jammer. Now, of course, if you're getting hit by Junos, it like doesn't quite make as much sense to do that, but they are relatively cheap to build. They're pretty fast to build, and they're only like 100 metal, which is cheaper than T1 units. For the most part. So not too bad. It just sucks when you lose them to the Juno. But ideally you want to try to replace it and just make it so that it's taxing on them to have to keep using the Juno again and again and again. But also, when they get Juno'd, like they leave a wreck, so you can either eat the wreck or you can reclaim the wreck, or you can resurrect the wreck as well. So there's that aspect of it as well. Yeah, Juno's flying. Looks like you got one coming in. Kind of a weird spot, but I can understand that. So Blue's actually laying down a lot of pressure here, so that means no help for you. But it looks like you're in a decent spot right now, so not a big deal. But yeah, given your position, like you're in a reasonable position. Wait, what's he even building here? Paralyzer? Holy shit! He's trying to get away with building this so close to you. But anyways, like so you're in a reasonable spot. It's like compared to what Teal has here, right? I'd be a little bit worried about all these dark green dots here, because I don't know if they're okay. That looks like they're air or something. They're probably air units. So that's something to consider. Like if you see dots, like try to look at how they're moving and figure out like do I need anti-air? Do I need is it a bunch of T1 spam or something? Do I need to worry about that? But yeah, just seeing how the dots move can actually give you a good picture on that. But anyways, besides those dots, like you're in a reasonable spot, you're in a forward spot. You can, given that you're in a forward spot, that means that you have the room to back up without threatening your base. Your base is going to be fine if you have to back up a little bit. So it would be an okay time to spend more of your build power on these eco buildings. But unfortunately, because these are up here, they can't help assist this. So you're kind of stuck, like also doing units along with this. So that just means they're going to be coming out slower as your metal starts training. Now with the reclaim, like that's helping you out significantly here and making those things, producing those things, I should say. Um, but I would say, given this hill here, and given that you saw a lot of dots, I would be wary about pushing up here because it's going to be hard to get vision up there. And you know that they're going to have all the vision in the world because they can have a radar up here. They're Junoing so that you don't have a jammer or anything like that. So they can definitely see all these dots, right? In fact, let's go to the view. Looks like they don't have. Do they really not have a radar up here? Oh dang. Well, they definitely should have a radar up here. And then they'd be able to barrage you with all this stuff. All these Mausers, even these guys can shoot reasonably far. Let's take it off that view. Yeah, well, they might, they could if you had units here. And if they had radar. Anyways, let's go back to your view. Yeah. Turn that line of sight back on. But yeah, anytime you have vehicles, especially slow-moving vehicles that can't run away very easily, and especially when it's starlights, because starlights can't fire behind them. Starlights and Mausers can't fire behind them. So as they're running away, if your opponent has some faster units, they can just catch up and kill them for free. So essentially, starlights can't run away effectively. At least if you're going to run away with them, you need to plan it out. You need to run them away before your front units, like your bulls, before those units die, so that your starlights can live. And they're so expensive that you might want to, that's something to consider. They're more expensive than the bull for sure. But yeah, with this hill here, I'd be very careful. Looks like you are still picking off some stuff. Because the whole thing is so you have these units here picking this stuff off. If he has, he could have some units being built up. I guess more likely they'd be down here. But he could have some units being built up. So if you did lose these somehow, now all of a sudden you don't have the momentum to keep this position at all, not even close. So it's just something to consider with the push and pull of the army. As you move up, the further you are away from reinforcements, the closer he is to reinforcements, and it's easier for him to build up a ball of units than it is for you. And if you're spread a little too thin up here, then it's basically an overextension at that point. And it's fine to park him here, get a little, extra damage here and there. Just be very careful, especially because you don't quite have vision. Your radar's all the way back here, and actually you can see all the way up the hill from here. So this is actually a good radar spot. Really good spot. I was going to say. Yeah, so you have the radar, but, of course they could have a jammer and a bunch of units down here or somewhere. So just be very careful. Juno takes out your radar, and now especially you're going to want to back up and replace that radar. Ooh, the starlets are still going in. Crazy. That's crazy. These should not be here. Well, luckily it kind of works out, actually. I feel like it shouldn't have. They could have targeted down the starlights for sure. And again, Mausers are way cheaper than starlights, so losing one starlight to 3, I think it's 3. Yeah, it's basically 4 actually, or 3. Yeah, it's basically 3 Mausers to 1 starlight in terms of metal. So yeah, nice kill on the advanced. See, so after something like that, I would consider, because you're getting so close here and you're running out of steam, you only have was it 4 starlights? Yeah, 4 starlights and a bull, and the bull's actually way up here. And you have these 2 bulls too, but they're basically dead at this point. They got so low health. Yeah, after killing that Geo, I would definitely run back. Do the damage. It basically a lot of times, while it's good to poke and deal some damage, I oftentimes see people do that damage and then say like, oh, let's just run into their base. And that works at lower levels quite well actually. But at higher levels, if you do something like that, then all of a sudden you're losing your entire army because allies come to help essentially. And what the heck? Can these really traverse that spot? That's really funny. He's like basically vertical on this cliff. Or no, he's not. Okay, he just looks vertical for a minute. But yeah, these mammoths are coming up here. That's the wrong view. Deskup. There we go. All right, so yeah, these mammoths are coming up here. These are getting paralyzed all of a sudden. Now you're gonna lose all of it for free. Um, basically, I guess the point is like the closer you are to the enemy base, the easier for them to get support from their allies and stuff. So all of a sudden, Green's showing up with this mammoth. The fighters here are to defend the shurikens, and the shurikens are stunning all your units. So now they're all gonna be gone because you're so close to the enemy base. It's so threatening to them in a way, right? Um, so yeah, starlights. And I'd be kind of wary of getting only starlights. Because while they have, that nice range and that nice damage and everything, anything that threatens them, either because they're really fast and there's many of them, or, they have some range, or, whatever it is, starlights die very, very quickly. They only have 2,800 hit points. You definitely want some bulls or something in front of them to take some damage. Because, yeah, if anything runs up on them, they can die rather quickly. Let's see, what else does my... Let's go over... Okay. I think I covered that quite a bit. Yeah, and I'd say at this point, like, it becomes very helpful to have, line of sight as much as you can to just help targeting and to know exactly what's there instead of seeing, dots and stuff. And it's kind of nice you got the guy behind you doing some spam. It's not like coming out crazy fast or anything, but a tick here and there will give you a little bit of vision, and so you can see what to do. Sniper is also a nice addition here, so he's got some nice stuff coming out for you. Let's see, what are you doing back at base? You're just producing units, so to me that's good. That's great that you're just producing a little bit here and there, or that you're not like producing like a ton of economy and a ton of units. At this point, it feels right to get just units right now. Actually, I will point out that I'm not sure if this pulsar is needed. They're quite expensive for what they are. I'll talk about that APHIS in a minute too. Like 3,500, it's significant. Plus they have, drain anytime they shoot. I mean, it's not like a ton of money or anything like that, but to me, like you're in a position where you're trying to hold up here and not hold here. And so this, while it can shoot this far, to me, putting it a little bit further down, I mean, I guess it is a riskier play, but it would hopefully keep your opponents further away, whereas this line here is rather close to your base. If the whole thing is to keep your enemy, on, say, like this side of the line, in this area, this is a slow, or this is a very close spot to your base, so it's fairly easy to push. So to me, putting it a little bit further out, like the second one you're building, this extends the range all the way to out here. Sorry for my bad circle drawing, I just can't do it. So that's good. I think this is good, but I think the first one's a little bit unnecessary. This obviously will help you feel a little bit safer. But if they're getting that close, then it's already going to be unsafe because they can just run in there with a bunch of units all at once and overload the starlight essentially. So the starlight isn't going to really help you if they do choose to attack, at least not this one. This one's a nice more forward position, keeps them away further. I'd be a little bit wary of this hill here because it's denying its firing potential. You know, basically, you know, if I were to draw like, whoops, didn't mean to do that. If I were to draw where it can attack, it'd probably be something like, you know, like it would not be able to shoot over here. This is not shootable. So essentially, a bunch of enemies could hide here and then just run up on it, or run up on it from back here. You know, so it's a little bit of an unsafe position. I would maybe opt to um, you know, maybe put it up here somewhere. Either do this or put it on the hill. Just know if you put it on the hill, there's a greater chance that blue is going to get angry about it and try to kill it. So there's that to consider as well. Um, but you know, the hill would be a better position for pink's sake. It just means, yeah, blue could hit that, green could hit that, teal could also hit that. So I mean, it's a little bit less safe that way too. Um, yeah, mammoths, they're quite good. Quite good. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about the aphis. So let's see. Given this, while it might feel somewhat safe with like the support of brown, this actually isn't that much here. So this feels a little bit unsafe. Some people might call that, you know, might say greedy instead, but I call it unsafe because it's basically slowing down your unit production, which makes you more vulnerable. So that's the way I choose to look at it. But anyways, it's a sizable expenditure, you know, and maybe this is just like you decided that you're safe, or you know, you feel rather safe, so you feel comfortable doing this. I don't know if that's the case or not, but my whole point is to try to make you aware of that, essentially, if you're not, you know, in case you're not, or you know, think of it that way. I would say that if I'm going to do something like this, I would consider eating the lab. Actually, no, because you don't quite have the build power here, I don't think. So it's kind of fine. I would definitely stop producing units though, so that it doesn't eat up more of that metal. And then while it's going up, I would be watching a zoomed out view like this, like a hawk. Be like, okay, you know, am I gonna get attacked? You know, because because I know that this is producing slower because of this, and because of all the con turrets and stuff being built around there and all that. So it's just something to like be like, oh shit, like am I going to get attacked or not? And just be very, very mindful of how many units you see here, either on the radar or just like, you know, try to figure out what units they are exactly if you can. In this case, you know, there's some nice vision provided by these ticks, and so you know it's a bunch of mammoths and fiends and, you know, a couple of Mausers and you know, it's a hodgepodge of random stuff. I'd also be careful if I, you know, if I see blue, like move out of this position and move anything up here. And just be careful, you know, the idea is to be careful of what's actually happening on the front. And then if need be, you know, if you decide like, oh, I need to produce more units now, you know, you can pause all these. Pause is W. It's not going to show up on my thing here, but in case you don't know, pause is W by default. So you just select all your stuff here, hit W to turn them off, and then turn them back on when you want to start building this again. You can do the same thing with these turrets in this this lab. I think you can do it with the Juno. I'm not 100% sure on that though. But yeah, idea is like, you know, to be watchful of anything that could potentially kill you. And it's the very, very millisecond that you see a giant push coming at you, you are prepared for it. And that, you know, in some cases it could be air. It could be like fast attacking units. It could be like a huge like ball of pawns or something. Or it could just be like some slower push units, or maybe even a T3 unit, you know. It could be like a slow T3 unit, or All of a sudden, like, 20 snipers show up, or a couple of starlight, some starlights or whatever it is. Um, because sometimes it's like, this team over here could be communicating with each other and saying like, hey, let's make this big push up here. And of course, for them, they're looking for the weak spot. Like, where's the easiest place to push? Which is generally going to be along the edges of the map. If say like they helped blue push, and a bunch of people ran units down here, destroyed pink and stuff, it's very easy for you to respond and move down here, and for brown to respond and go this way, and for orange to go this way, to like in response, right? So it's not ideal for people to attack the middle like that. So what they'll do instead is look down here and say like, okay, can we send like a bunch of units down here? Is it going to do some damage? They see a ton of red units here, and there's also pink units here, and it's like, okay, that's probably not going to work. They might send units down here to help out actually in this situation. But instead, they're going to look at your position and say like, okay, that's a much easier spot to attack right now. Let's send a bunch of people or send a bunch of fast units just directly through here. And given what you guys have here, a giant ball of pawns or a lot of fiends or something like would actually do quite well against this, because snipers are not great against, like, snipers and starlights are great against like big, expensive units. They're better against like T3 and like bulls and tigers and stuff like that. But they're not going to be great against spam, right? So like spam would actually hurt this position dramatically. In fact, like, it'd probably just kill you. So yeah, watching over that as this is being built. And given your metal situation, I would actually just rebuild this lab that it looks like you reclaimed. Because your metal's actually quite okay. Or actually, yeah, it's fine to build some turrets on too, to just eat it up that way. Build it on in that kind of way. Now hopefully, I was going to say, ideally, you want to place these turrets up here. Because they can assist the Aphis. And then once the Aphis is done, and you get a couple of some converters to go with it, all of a sudden you're going to want more build power for your lab. And if you rebuild the lab in this location, now all of a sudden, these turrets that were used for the Aphis can now be used for the lab. So like, it's sort of like you're kind of like I think you're understanding the flip flop a little bit between like economy and building units. It's just not quite dialed in yet. Like, you're eating the lab to get your Aphis up faster and stuff like that. So like, it's good. It's good that you're thinking about that. I'm trying to actually move you to the next kind of level of that. And the next part, besides like, the early stuff with like your mexes and stuff, while you're building the lab was not good. Getting that ironed out and getting your placement here ironed out a bit, and all of a sudden, like, that's going to put you in a much better position actually. Like, if you get all that ironed out and figured out, I believe you're actually probably going to jump a bunch of levels if you're able to play it out like that consistently. So here, holy cow, this I'd be I'd be like, oh shit. I would actually, like, this is enough units here that I would actually be like, allies, like, I'd ping around here, well, maybe not too frantically because that gets annoying, but I'd start pinging over here, be like, guys, they're gearing up to do a big push over here. I'm gonna need some help, because with what you guys have over here, this is not gonna cut it. This is very clearly spam of some kind. Obviously these are not all gonna be mammoths or something, right? They're not all gonna be T3 units, and they're moving quite quickly. So yeah. So, wait, he's kind of doing this a little weird. Alright, now I'm confused. He's kind of setting units in a weird way. Okay, he's testing the waters, I guess. So the initial units that came in were grunts. Before he commits possibly more expensive units or like the whole group, he's testing your defenses. He doesn't necessarily know everything that's here, right? And I don't know if, I guess there's a bit of a hill, but I was going to say, you don't have a jammer, so I would think that he'd have radar to know what the dot situation was. But either way, he's testing the waters with these grunts, to just kind of see like what is even over here attacking me. Can I get away with a big push like this? And so here he goes, does this big push, and those Dragon Claws that you had earlier, like that would actually help out a lot here too. Um, so if you're ever in a situation where you see something like this coming and you have a little bit of time to defend against it, I would place some like Dragon Claws. I would get some Jaguars if you can. Obviously, right now your lab's gone. Um, just things that are good against spam like this, because that is especially since um, what you and your ally have here are weak against spam. So yeah, this rolls in, and this is gonna hurt a lot. Uh, I'm like kind of thinking to myself, like, would it have made sense to have like a T2 radar over here to just see further? Um, but that gets kind of rough because you have these hills that would block it, right? You wouldn't actually be able to see that much. So I'm just thinking of ways that you could potentially get notification that this was going to happen sooner. Because ultimately, um, against anything that could happen at this time, scouting is of course the answer. Scouting is always the answer. The more scouting you can do, the more you know what your opponent's doing, and the more you can like kind of cross off. Well, I know he's not doing this. I know he's not doing that. Um, and obviously, certain things like air, like there could be an air player back here that just had like the dark green had like a lot of bombers just kind of like chilling here. He could potentially send that in as well. And and it's going to be harder to scout something like that. But the point is, like, if you can send scouts in to possibly see like how much air there is, how much stuff is being built or what is being built, and plan accordingly. It's kind of interesting that we see this. Um, Probably just some uh, vision errors since I keep flip flopping the player view. But anyways, that's probably the last thing. Yeah, this is the last thing I want to really go over on this replay. Um, is the whole scouting thing, and this is not easy to. I mean, it's fairly easy to work in. Like you just got to remember to do it, but it's something that a lot of people neglect as the game goes on. Even higher level players neglect. Um, Red's got some air. I believe earlier he like sent in some finches to like try to get some information. So if you do watch this replay, like there is a time when Red does a little bit of scouting. It's not the best scouting, but like he at least tries, and that's why he is Red. That's why he's 56. Is like shit like that. It's just like knowing what's coming and you know figuring it out to guard against it. Um, so yeah, there's like two or three different ways. I mean, two main ways to scout, right? There's the um, I mean, especially on this map because the hills make it kind of tricky. But the probably the best way is maybe before you build the APHIS or you do like a big project like that. Assuming you have a little bit of extra cash, like your metal income is like doing okay type of thing. You can get an air lab and get some air scouts. Um, and if you're gonna do that, I would say don't build just like one scout. Build like 20 scouts or something. Build like a lot, quite a few of them, and just kind of send them off into different directions, right? So that if one gets killed off here, you know, say there's like an anti-air tower, this one here can, or this air scout can still get in and maybe zip back up here to like see what's going on. So as your air scouts get towards the back, redirect them to see, trying to see more stuff essentially. Um, but if you do that, then you'd have an idea that this was coming. Um, Now, arguably, you could say like, well, it's my air players should be doing that. Um, and you might be right about that. They probably should be doing that. Um, in fact, if I was critiquing Row right now, that's what I would say is like, maybe you need to do air scouting like that. Um, but since they didn't, either you can politely ask them like, hey, do you mind, scouting type of thing. And if they give you shit or they still don't or whatever, then just do it yourself. Or at least it's an option to do it yourself. Now, obviously, that's going to slow down your APHIS. That's going to slow down unit production for a half second or whatever. But at least you'd see this coming, so you'd could make a better play off of it. Um, and in this case, if I saw like a bunch of fiends being queued, or if I see a bunch of fiends starting to pile up back there somewhere, I'll say, hey, I'm not gonna get this Avis right now. Like, fuck no. Like, I need some anti-fiend shit right now. um, the other option for scouting is like a cloak scout. Now, usually people think of this in terms of ghosts or specters, which are also very good because of their EMP on self-detonation ability. Um, but even for scouting purposes, they're quite nice. Try to get one or like leave some at the front to see stuff, but also try to get a couple into their base to see what their next move is, if possible. It's a little tricky to do that, especially with these rocks here, because traversing around units and around the rocks, makes it very difficult to actually get back there. Um, and it also depends on how many units are back here, but you can potentially get one back there. Is my points. Since you're Armada and your vehicle, you could also do Gremlins. I saw you produce one earlier, which is fantastic. Gremlins are great for that vision. I would just argue, if you're gonna lose it, try to build another one, at least one. I'd actually argue get 2 or 3 for the fronts, and then 2 or 3 more to try to scout the back. Um, but yeah, that's it's hard. It's much harder to do with cloaked units. In terms of the air scouts, like obviously the opponent could have some anti-air and they could just get picked off. Um, type of thing. But if you build enough scouts, there's a greater chance of them getting through to see stuff, essentially. One of the other things you can do is get things like perimeter cameras early on. So what I like to do is as I gain ground, like so early on in the game, like the perimeter cameras are pretty cheap. They do cost some energy per second to stay cloaked and shit like that. So you gotta be very mindful of your energy, because if they get uncloaked, then they're seen, and then they're permanently, then the enemy permanently knows that they're there. So you want to maintain your energy pretty well. But so initially, as the front gets established, like it kind of got established like around here, I would consider moving a constructor or your commander if he's nearby and not do anything. So maybe place like a permanent camera here, or place one at the top of the map or something, just like around. Obviously in the middle, there's a greater chance of them being run into and killed off. So like ideally put them like in the hill and shit. But especially, there's a couple times when you were able to push forward a bit. Or there was that one time, I guess, when you were like basically around here. Or, sorry, that's a bad, not quite correct. So you were around here. You could have placed. I don't know if I'd do it with my commander at that time, because that's pretty risky. But if you get a constructor around, you can get a perimeter camera up there. Maybe you put one down here somewhere, just because like at that point they're pretty cheap. So just like place them around, and if they get picked off, they get picked off. But there's always a chance of one of them living, and if they live, then you have some intel of what's going on besides just dots. And that's more important when it comes to like big long range battles, like say it was Starlight versus Starlight, or whatever, or people don't have Junos and it's like stuff being jammed. Well, now you have a perimeter camera, you don't even need a Juno. So stuff like that would help too. Um, yeah. Let's see, what is your air player going on? Okay, so Ro is just like cranking out a lot of oh, he's got 3 Junos. Okay, so I guess he's trying to play the support slash air role. And he's building up his economy. But yeah, ideally he would have some scouts going on as well. But yeah, that pretty much covers it. I'm just gonna speed up. So at this point you're pretty dead. Yeah, how do you guys still see so far? That can't be right. Is this back on player view? Huh. I'm surprised that there's a radar that sees all the way over there. 'Cause I don't see a radar. I think this is just a bug, honestly. Because there's this circle. What the heck? There's like nothing that actually sees that far right now. Unless you do have a T2 thing. Like you should be able to see up to there, but oh, someone. Okay, so you must have one, right? Or somebody does around here. Let me look. Oh, you did build one. Okay, that was yeah one of the things I think I mentioned it, but yeah, I was gonna say like an advanced radar would help a lot. Um, Obviously not against this many things, so you kind of just shit out of luck because your allies are pretty preoccupied. Like it's kind of hard for red to get up there, you know. And since there's a big push up here, you know, like, and I say this just in case, like you see, you know, if you do get more comfortable and you're able to zoom out and see like the big picture of what's going on, if you do see somebody get pushed like you just did, you know, then your response should be like, and if you're too far away to actually do anything about it, your response should be like, go attack, like big time, big time, big time. Um, you know, like orange is spamming units down here. Red, I think he's kind of coming up here to try to take this out, but either way, like coming, kind of moving up here, right? Obviously, purple has quite a bit here. He didn't really, you know, he hasn't done anything to help with this attack, so um, you know, it doesn't make sense for red to go that way. Instead, he's going around some other way where there's less resistance. But yeah, counterattacking, definitely very choice. Uh, and some of the stuff you might already know. I'm just, you know, I don't know what you know. I don't know. Um, like I'm sure there's probably people that watch this that don't know some of the stuff either. So I figured I must just say it all. Uh, yeah, how long has this been going? Oh wow, it's like an hour and a half already. I put a lot of detail into this, but I'm trying to like, you know, be more concise and like shorten it down. But like it's hard because I want to describe everything. I want to like, you know, mention all the different angles of why this is good, why this is bad. Um, it's hard for me not to. But yeah, just for the sake of seeing what happens, we'll just kind of let it go. Because yeah, at this point you're dead. And I think you're doing a little bit of rebuilding, but I'm not gonna pay too much attention to that. Because yeah, even if you're able to revive this Aphis, like there's just so many units back here that yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's not really gonna happen, unfortunately. Aphis is gone. But yeah, that was a very nice move by green here, and the people that supported his attack. Get a little bit slow to respond here. Not that I mean, I don't think it really matters here. Yeah, I guess I realize that this might go on for a little while, so I might just cut it out here, because otherwise it's just like watching this play out, but it's, you know, like any other game, it's gonna probably take a while. I see. So this is, I guess I'll point this out really quick before I turn this off, but you know, like I was saying, like red could counterattack up here. He decides not to. Um, he instead is deciding to, like, so since he's all the way at the bottom, right? He's sort of like moving his unit so that he covers a wider angle, right? He's got like all this covered. Um, Well, with a bit of, I mean, yeah, it's mostly red here. But or then again, I guess it's anti-air. Oh, okay, so I guess most of his units are up here, so never mind. Most of this is anti-air actually. Um, but what I was gonna say is, what one of the things that red could do. I don't really know if this is like a great idea or not. This is just me kind of spitballing, but to me, if red, um, had his ground forces stationed to defend this area, like gave it a wider area, now all of a sudden orange can position units up here, and all these players back here can assist with this. It kind of like covers the gaps, right? Like he just needs to spread out more. The guys basically everyone like moves down the line and says, well, there's a big hole over there. We need to like, stretch out that way, and each person just takes up a little bit more room, but like further down the line, um, to try to cover it. And it's probably pretty difficult to get an entire team on that idea, though. So what are these? Are these more scouts? It's kind of hard to see when they're moving. Okay, so yeah, lots of scouts. Um, few anti-air in there too. Teddy's a very, very good player, by the way, so I'm kind of like looking at what he's doing to like, kind of get into his head a little bit if I can, but obviously I'm not just watching him, so it's kind of hard to know. But yeah, lots of anti-air all the way across. It's like yellow switching into bombers and spams, so I mean, or I guess EMP bombers, I should say. Yeah, EMP is actually, EMP is just so good. Look at that. All those units stunned for 20 seconds, and then all of a sudden the spam can come in and kill shit. Yeah, so Ro's doing a good job here for sure. Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes down to like, he's ecoing, and then all of a sudden he's like, okay, I need to stop ecoing, and I need to build units immediately, and that's all I'm going to do. It's just units now. Because that way, you're doing that one or the other type of thing. No, and that's why his anti-air felt a little bit, like, he didn't have a ton of anti-air. He was trying to get away with doing more greed. Yeah, Ro being at 35, I would actually, I would think that if you asked him like, hey, would you mind scouting over here, I'm sure he'd probably do it for you. The bombing. Just yeah, I mean that's interesting. I mean, so at this point in the game, it's like that there's going to be some anti-air, right? So he just, I mean, ideally you'd scout with this type of thing. You'd like send some scouts with your bombers so they're like just ahead of the bombers, um, to hopefully see what's actually here and have a better target. But yeah, he blindly attacks that zone and does some okay damage. I'm just saying it could have been a little bit more directed. Like if he had known that these APHIS were here, it could have been directed at the APHIS and done more potentially. But yeah, this is, I feel like this is going to last for quite a little while, and I think I'm going to cut it out here. So I hope you learned something. I hope everybody that watched this learned a little something. And if anybody has questions, leave a comment or, or ask me directly or whatever. And yeah, thanks for watching.